You are listening to the FEBIS podcast, and my name is Sylvia Amaral. To know more about FEBIS, visit our web at www.febis.org and follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Please subscribe to our podcast and stay tuned. And well, time flies when we are having fun. And here we are for the last episode of the year of the FEBIS podcast. And I am in the best of the companies with Jan Stange, FEBIS Legal Counsel, and Stephanie Verilac-Marzan, FEBIS Institutional and Regulatory Affairs Coordinator. So thank you both for joining me once again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Again, an intense year, we can say. To start, what would you say have been the major EU regulatory highlights for the business information industry, at least in the last months of 2023?
Yeah, well, basically, Sylvia, we had especially three major files. One on late payment, the ESG, but also the Financial Data Access Regulation, the FIDA report, which was actually published yesterday. And of course, like in all three files, FEBIS was engaging heavily with the stakeholders. And concerning FIDA, I'm not sure if Stephanie, you had a chance already to read it. Like, what are your first impressions of the FIDA draft report that was published by the European Parliament?
Yeah, so just to give a little bit of a context for our listeners who may not be 100% familiar with FIDA as we are. So FIDA, to give the global picture, this is the Financial Data Access Regulation, and it's really the part that was done in order to create a framework for controlled and consent-based sharing and access of financial data. And so, as you said, Jan, I mean, the European Parliament literally just published the draft report yesterday. So it's a bit of, the Christmas gift for us at the end of the year. And what we find into the FIDA report is that we can see that some of the considerations that FEBIS brought have been taken into account. For example, the definitions. So the fact that there needs to be more clearer definitions, not only of data holders and data user, but also of a financial information service provider. This has been put forward in the report, and also there has been some consideration of the so-called permission dashboard. So the idea is that the financial data will be accessible based on user consent, as said. And in order to give the consent, then the data holders would need to put in place permission dashboard, right, to enable the access to the data. And one of the big fears that was brought forward was that there would be as many dashboards as there are data holders, meaning that it would be completely, literally impossible to cope with. And what the EP report is doing is considering the possibility of having grouped or permission dashboards that are not only tied to one data holders but to several. So that's a very good point. Last but not least, I mean, the coordination with other EU legislation is also stressed, and this is probably a recurrent point that we've been stressing all over the years, right? That it shouldn't be a silo regulation. So we're hopeful.
Stephanie, just about concerning your opinion. Well, obviously that there's this tight timeline that we have, right? We have the last plenary session now in April. Do you share the same opinion that there's a risk maybe that the FIDA is not going to pass before, meaning that they have to reopen the whole process for the new elections or after the elections from 2024 on?
Yeah, there's a great likelihood that this is going to happen, as you say, because I mean, the forecast at the moment is to have it adopted at the last plenary session, so on the 10th of April, if I'm right. And but this is in the case, everything goes well in the discussion with the shadow rapporteurs and among the different groups. And there's indeed a big chance that some discussions can be a little bit animated, let's say, and that the FIDA doesn't go through as smoothly as planned. So if that happens, then it's going to be pushed back to September or October when the new European Parliament will be in place.
Yeah, I mean, we see the risk with the ESG and the late payment as well, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the report on ESG was now finalized and was published. They came to an agreement. Of course, we still have the issue of the differentiation between rating and scoring that's still mixed up. But on the other side, I mean, on the functional separation, meaning where entities that are part of the same groups would be prohibited. Now, at least appropriate measures can be installed. And also when it comes to the separation of E, S, and G, meaning providing one on E and one on S and one on G. Now, certainly you can provide a single ESG rating that aggregates ESG factors. But I mean, again, like on all three files, and I guess you agree on this, we have a risk that they are not going to be finalized before the end of the term. I mean, what we can see is that the Commission is pushing quite heavily on all three files. I mean, on late payment, for instance, we see there's a lot of opposition on the 30 days, meaning if you after the 30 days, automatic interests are triggered, and from other associations and other stakeholders, we see there's a lot of opposition, meaning there, especially on this file, there's a high risk that this is not going to pass for the next elections. On another topic, where, Stephanie, do you already see kind of issues in the future? Meaning, of course, we need to follow up these three, the ESG late payment and the FIDA, but especially for next year, I heard already some rumors regarding GDPR, for instance, that they're going to be the Commission is going to evaluate a first draft. Where do you see like possible topics for the future?
Yeah, I mean, as you stressed, so first of all, probably those three important files for the business information sector are going to continue, like so the FIDA, the ESG ratings, and the late payment. This is probably going to be, still high on the agenda. But as you say, GDPR or the reopening, not the reopening, but let's say the review of the GDPR is something that should take place before the 25th of May. And so the European Commission has already started drafting questionnaires and probably is going to put forward a public consultation at the very beginning of January, I guess. So this is a moment where we could, stress what's working with the GDPR, but also what's not, and especially the clashes between GDPR and other pieces of legislation, as we have already said, like on transparency, on public sector information, on the coordination with the Data Act, or even more importantly, the coordination between GDPR and the brand newly adopted, AI Act.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, that is a good summary of 2023 latest topics, and definitely already a sneak peek into 2024. And now I have a very special question for both of you. Imagine that Father Christmas is an omnipresent regulator. What would you say to him, or what would be your wish list?
Well, I would say, if I may start, maybe less regulation, but I think this is going to be a wish then forever. So I hope that obviously the new elections next year, well, the MEPs that are going to be elected are more market friendly, so to say, that we will have a change in the perspective, also when it comes to the industry, for business information, to showcase also how important the business information sector is, also for the broader value chain. So this would be my wish for the future. I mean, we can see that FEBIS is becoming like, we can see it on the European scene, at least when we talk to policymakers, that FEBIS is becoming a valuable partner when it comes to decision making. and also working together, collaborating together. And my wish is to have this even more in the future, meaning that the Parliament, but also the Commission, is going to listen more to us as they are already doing now, but to be like more open for new suggestions and new ideas, and then steer together straight to the future.
Yeah, if I may, complement what you said, Jan. I think, yeah, the wish for less regulation, we know it's a pure wish, right? Because they're not going to do that. So I would call for more practical regulation and more suitable regulation that takes into account the bigger picture and not only the silo in which sometimes the regulator find themselves. So being more agile, being more practical, listening more to the stakeholders who are not there only to complain, but also to explain, right, and to brief the regulators about the expectations and the desideratas, let's say, of the business industry. So that's a very important point. And I think also making a wish list that the possibility sometimes to come back on things that obviously are not working well, to have a review clause possible and to adapt some of the regulations sometimes to ever changing economic considerations, because we see that the world is absolutely not set in stone, and especially in the tech environment or in the data environment that we constantly work with on a daily basis, we see the time span is going very fast and the regulatory time span is going sometimes very slow. So we need to find a way to align those two streams. So more practical regulation and taking more into account the economic outlook, let's say.
That is, I think, a very good wish list, but I'm afraid it's also a bit ambitious, so if I may say. But in any case, well, we are not far from reaching step by step these little wishes. So let's continue working into 2024 and let's hope for the best going ahead. From my part, just thank you again for joining me in this episode and wishing you a lovely holiday season. We would love to hear your feedback and thoughts for future episodes. You have been listening to the FEBIS podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe. Thank you for listening.